Welcome to today's edition of the Rush 24/7 podcast.
Lord knows I've tried, and I guess I'm going to have to give another stab at it today. I've tried to explain Trump to people. I've tried to explain Trump to the never-Trumpers. I've tried to explain Trump even to Trump voters who think they understand him. And I've tried to explain Trump to everybody here. I mean, the drive-bys are going bonkers with all these Trump flip-flops. Trump lied. Trump didn't mean it during the campaign. Trump misled everybody. His voters ought to be outraged. All of this stuff, and it's I don't know, folks. It's kind of funny to watch because it's evident to me that they still do not know who they're dealing with here, and they do not know why he got elected. They still haven't figured this out. Despite my best efforts, I have made such great effort here to make it as simple as I can to people who simply refuse to understand or try to understand who and what Donald Trump is. Anyway, greetings, my friends. Great to have you here as we kick off another 3 hours of broadcast excellence. The phone number is 800-282-2882 and the email address lrushbo@eivnet.us. Let me try it this way. In the past, I have made a point of pointing out that Donald Trump is not ideological. Now, to me, that means more than he's not just conservative or liberal. But I guess I'm going to need to add to that. When I say he's not ideological, and I'll explain it again, he's not a conservative and he's not a liberal. He knows what both things are. It's just not how he looks at the world. And it's not how he sees people. Now, there's some people that's refreshing and it's good. Other people, it's alarming. Some people think that if he can be trained or reoriented towards seeing things and people ideologically, that things would be better off. But the man is 71 years old. He's not going to change the way he has always thought and believed. So let me try this. How about if I were to say to you that Donald Trump doesn't really have a political philosophy? In other words, there is no, you can say conservatism and then bullet point what it is. And you can say liberalism and you can bullet point what it is. It doesn't take many to convey what liberalism is. But try bullet pointing what Donald Trump is. And I defy anybody to be able to do it. I mean, during the campaign, during the transition, and even now during the first 100 days, if you were given an assignment to bullet point Donald Trump and to define, to say, for example, that there is a Trump philosophy that he is guided by inexorably, political philosophy, what would it be? And I don't think anybody would be able to come up with it. Because I don't think, and this is not a put down, and it's not a word game, it's a sincere effort that I'm engaging in yet again to try to help as many people as possible understand who and what they're dealing with in Donald Trump. There isn't a particular political philosophy. So the idea that one day he can be anti-NATO and then after certain things happen become pro-NATO, it doesn't wash with people. That doesn't make sense. He is not being true to his principles. Yes, he is. You just don't know what they are. He lives and operates in a political world, but he's not political. And this is what people still don't get. Now, he has to interact with political people. He's got to learn their language. He's got to be able to work with them and get things done within that quote-unquote business. But it leads to all of, the Washington Post is beside itself today. They don't know whether to be happy, sad, afraid, worried, and chronicling all these Trump flip-flops. Let's see, is this it? Yes. Headline, Trump backs off fiscal pledges and adopts centrist policies that he once fought. President Trump is abandoning a number of his key campaign promises on economic policy, adopting instead many of the centrist positions he railed against when campaigning as a populist. Has Donald Trump ever called himself a populist? I don't think Donald Trump's ever called himself a populist. I think other people have called him a populist, and other people have called Steve Bannon a populist. And so they associate it, but I don't think Trump's ever called himself that, and he may not even know what one is within the political realm or definition. But he's not a political person, and that, I think, is leading to many people having just a devil of a time translating the guy, analyzing the guy, predicting the guy, projecting the guy. So during the campaign, Trump labeled the Chi-Coms a bunch of currency manipulators. And he said this was going to end, that these people are monkeying around with the currency and they're doing horrible things to the trade deficit that we have and with the balance of payments and doing horrible things to American jobs. And it's because we've had dumb American leaders that haven't known how to negotiate and haven't known how to do things. And then yesterday, Trump came around and said, you know what? They're not currency manipulating anymore. He did not label them a currency manipulator. He told the Wall Street Journal yesterday, despite a campaign promise, that he would apply the label on his first day in office. He also said he was open to reappointing Janet Yellen to the Federal Reserve. But last year, he said that she should be ashamed of what she was doing to the country. Now he wants to reappoint her. And he embraced the Export-Import Bank, a government agency that he mocked last year and that has long been despised by conservatives who labeled it crony capital. I'm reading here from the Washington Post. And then they write, these statements represent a move toward the economic policies of more centrist Republicans and even at times align with the approach of former President Barack Hussein O. Should he follow through on the newly articulated positions, it would suggest that the candidate who ran as the ultimate outsider is increasingly adopting a more moderate economic agenda. The reversals come amid a period of rapid evolution for Trump on both foreign and domestic issues. So here you have a political analysis of what they consider, I guess in the world of politics, these would be considered flip-flops. Trump doesn't think he's flip-flopping on anything. He thinks he's having success. Trump thinks he's moving the goalposts in our direction. Trump thinks that he is, and in fact, yesterday on this program, never forget this, because this worked out so well. Snerdley, I forget how it came up, but Snerdley asked me, you don't really think, what was your question about North Korea and China? You were of the, oh, that's right. Snerdley says, aren't you worried about World War III, well, what the Norks are doing and the Chi-Coms are their allies? And I said, no, not at all, because at the end of the day, the Chi-Coms are not going to be the allies of the North Koreans. They're going to be our allies against the North Koreans. It's not going to be, the Chi-Coms are not, we owe them too much money, number one. They make all of our iPhones, number two. There is no way that the Chi-Coms are going to trade us for the North Koreans. If anybody does anything, it's going to be the Chi-Coms warning the Norks to dial it back or else. And you know what happened? At 6 o'clock, I'm at home. I'm minding my own business. And I thought, okay, it's time to get back into show prep. And I find a story that's published at Zero Hedge, and it's about just that the Chi-Coms have not quite delivered an ultimatum, but they sent a message to the North Koreans, if you guys don't tamp this down and stop this, you can forget about any help from us. And we will resort to measures previously unused in dealing with you. I know what it was. A friend of mine sent me that story. And the subject line was, wow, who would ever believe this? And I looked at it and I said, damn, I just predicted this 2 hours ago, 3 hours ago. So I got hold of Coco at the website, and I made it a just-in from Rush, and we linked to the segment we discussed yesterday. So in this case, you have the Chi-Coms after what Trump called a successful phone call with the Chi-Com leader, and after a successful meeting here at Mar-a-Lago with the Chi-Com leader, we have now the appearances, anyway, of a new alliance between the Chi-Coms and us, with the Norks left out. And my instincts were yesterday that this was was going to be how it eventuated anyway. There's an ideological tie between the Norks and the Chi-Coms, and that's communism. But believe me, the Chinese, I don't have it exactly as I said it yesterday, but the Chinese are not going to risk everything that they have done, succeeded in economic progress, military might. They're going to risk all of that in siding with the North Koreans over us. In fact, they're going to do everything they can to make sure the North Koreans don't do anything but keep missing. Now we've got stories that the Norks have sarin-tipped missiles that they're ready to fire. The South Koreans, the Norks have been launching all these missiles, and the South Koreans have been going out there in the ocean and retrieving as much of the material from the rockets. You know what they're finding? They're finding guidance systems made in the United States in North Korean rockets. Now, I wonder how many of you are going to remember this. Do any of you remember the name of a program of a company from the Clinton years called Loral Space? Anybody remember that name? You probably, some of you might remember, but you probably don't remember what it was. I'll explain to you. The Chi-Coms, during the Clinton era, were having trouble achieving orbit, geosynchronous orbit, with some of their satellites. And that meant they were having guidance problems with their ICBMs. The Clintons needed something out of the Chi-Coms, so they got hold of the guy that ran Loral Space. He's a huge Democrat donor. And they sent people from Loral Space over to Beijing to examine used missile parts from failed Chinese launches and shared with them guidance and other technology to help the Chinese be able to keep satellites in geosynchronous orb and help them with their guidance. Well, it turned out if we do that, you know, the Chi-Coms are going to share some of that with the Norks. We're talking about the 1990s now. And so the South Koreans have found evidence of American technology in North Korean missile guidance. It has to come from Loral. It doesn't have to. I mean, the Chi-Coms may have, in the interim, developed their own, but it certainly was true in the 90s that Loral Space, Democrat donor, I remember when it happened, we couldn't believe it. We couldn't believe that the Clintons were sending an American company over there. In fact, it involved the State Department, Ron Brown or something. I remember the controversy about this. It involved turning the project here over to the State Department rather than Commerce. That's what it was. The Clintons turned this over to the State Department, putting it under the umbrella of diplomacy rather than the Commerce Department to do this, because Commerce Department had rules against sharing this kind of technology with enemies. But the State Department, no such rules apparently, so that's what it was. Anyway, so the question, let me just ask you a question, you Trumpists out there, Trump voters. How many of you today are feeling betrayed? I ask this with no prejudice. I'm not saying you should or shouldn't feel it. I'm just asking. We got a bunch of Trumpists here. People who voted Trump. I've asked them today, do you feel betrayed by this import-export bank stuff? Do you feel betrayed by Janet Yellen? Do you feel betrayed by Trump supposedly flip-flopping on? Nope. So why not? See what Jeff Sessions is doing? Yeah, you mean immigration? Damn straight. Trump is doing everything he promised. You've seen what the job situation is? Yep. You've seen what the economic forecasts in the future are? Yep. Why would we be unhappy, Mr. Limbaugh? Immigration, illegal immigration, was the number one domestic threat, threatening to upend the very culture and political makeup of this country, and we had to get a handle on it. And whatever else Trump is doing, he is going full speed ahead on enforcing the border. I mean, Jeff Sessions goes down there and makes a speech, and basically this border is closed. You are not welcome here if you are coming illegally. You are not welcome. This border is closed. Don't even try it. People are standing up and cheering. Export-Import Bank, what? NATO? Nobody ever thought NATO was going to be dwindling away and dissolving away into nothing anyway. The key to understanding Trump again, Grab audio soundbite number 1. December 8th, 2015, a year and a half ago, me on this program.
Right here in The Art of the Deal, Trump says, if you're serious in a negotiation about wanting something, and by the way, being serious is the only time to enter it, and if there's something dead certain you've got to have, you have got to start out with the most outrageous position. The opener has got to be so outrageous that the compromise is exactly what you want. The opener is the most outrageous demand that you can make. Trump isn't really going to deport every Muslim, and he really isn't going to keep every Muslim out of here. Trump does have some pretty serious ideas, and to get there, he's got to start out with one of these outrageous things so that when Trump backs off of it is when he appears reasonable, which is when you can finally make the deal with him. It's a strategery. Trump is bringing his business acumen to politics, something that politicians don't have, business acumen, many of them, and so they don't recognize it and they don't understand it.
So you might say then, that's pretty brilliant, wasn't it? I mean, for something that didn't take even longer than a minute, if you just heard that and nothing more, you could pretty much explain everything you think Trump's flip-flopped on now. Because to him, everything's a negotiation. And so at that moment when I said, so when Trump backs off, it's when he appears reasonable. What are they saying about he's moderating? He is moving to the center. Oh, it's good. It's good. Trump is finally coming to our side. And it may be that he's finally gotten what he wants in all of these various things. It's got to be real hard. You know, when you stop and think, it's got to be real hard for career, lifetime, immersed in every aspect of politics. It's got to be hard for people like that to try to understand somebody who's not, who is nevertheless in their world. And I think this is one of the great obstacles that never Trumpers have, that some Trumpists, media types are having just the damnedest time analyzing this guy and trying to understand it. Really isn't hard. But the toughest thing for them to accept, I think, is that there isn't a specific Trump philosophy. That's why you're never going to be able to pin Trump down on it. He doesn't have a political philosophy like conservatism or liberalism or moderatism or what it is. He just, day to day, whatever he wants and needs, he's got a behavior pattern and a process to get there. Pure and simple. Anyway, I take a break here, folks. We are coming right back. Don't go. On this North Korea Chi-Com thing, the Chi-Coms even told the North Koreans, do not think Trump is bluffing here. He's not bluffing. Do not even think of entertaining the idea that he's bluffing. Do you think the Chi-Coms would have ever told the Norks anything like that about Obama? You think they would ever said, hey, you got to take this guy seriously? He's not bluffing. There is no way. I mean, to me, this is a major, major development. If you're in the middle of forging an alliance with the Chi-Coms because the immediate threat, forget what happened during the campaign. The immediate threat is these lunatics in North Korea are launching missiles. They don't know how to aim them, but they're trying to, and they're potentially dangerous. And Trump's on record as saying, "You better not. You're gonna regret doing it." He backs up what he says. He's formed an alliance with the Chi-Coms on this particular instance. So why would he run around? Everything he does is a negotiation. Why would he undercut himself by continuing to accuse them of currency manipulation when he needs them for something here? Everything with Trump is a negotiation, and it's based on what's happening now and what he wants now. Bashar al-Assad in Syria says that the chemical attack didn't happen. 100% fabrication. It didn't happen, and he didn't do it. Somebody claiming it happened to make him look bad, but he didn't do it. He would never gas his own people. The president is saying that U.S.-Russia relations are at an all-time low, while the president is praising the Chi-Com president, Xi Jinping, for his helpful efforts with the North Koreans. The president then followed by saying, hey, all this stuff with the Russians is going to work out. I'm confident it's going to work out. Don't worry about it. Right now, we kind of got problems, but going to work out. Now, this story that I was emailed last night around 6 o'clock, China warns North Korea situation has hit tipping point, threatens never-before-seen measures. This is the Chi-Com threatening the Norks. After warnings yesterday and on the heels of a very good call with President Trump, China has escalated its threats to North Korea over its nuclear tests. In another Global Times op-ed, China warns, quote, if the North makes another provocative move this month, the Chinese society will be willing to adopt severe restrictive measures that have never been seen before. It's from an editorial in the military-focused Global Times. It's a Chi-Com tabloid. It's owned and operated by the Chi-Coms themselves. So it's a Chi-Com Communist Party newspaper, and they're threatening the Norks in it. They said that the Norks' nuclear activities must not jeopardize northeastern China, and that if the North impacts China with its illicit nuclear tests through either nuclear leakage or nuclear pollution, then the Chi-Coms will respond with force. The editorial may also have been written by Xi Jinping. This is the bottom line for China. Should it be crossed, China will employ all means available, including the military, to strike back at the North Koreans. That's never happened, folks. We have never seen anything like this. And yes, I, your beloved host, essentially predicted this during yesterday's program. This news cleared about 5:30, 6 p.m. last night. And there is no question that it is the result of whatever meetings, relationships have occurred and been formed between Donald Trump and Xi Jinping. I should say Xi Jinping, the Chi-Com Grand Poobah. None of this was predictable. There isn't a political wizard at a think tank on earth that would have ever predicted this. And especially if they had relied on Trump's campaign rhetoric. On the campaign trail, Trump just was merciless going after the Chi-Coms for their unfair trade practices and their currency manipulation. Got their attention, didn't he? You know, the one thing I have learned, it's not a matter of learning, one thing I've observed over the course of many years is that in Washington, and it's even true of the Bush administration, although he was considered to be a cowboy, but there's really not a whole lot of tough talk that's come out of Washington around, particularly in the last 8 years, there hasn't been any tough. The toughest talk that came out of Washington was aimed by Obama and his regime at conservatives. Then the next level of toughest talk was aimed by Obama at our international allies. The softest and most friendly rhetoric coming from Obama was aimed at people we've always considered our enemies. The Iranians, the Russians, and so forth. There really hasn't been any tough talk. There hasn't been anybody trying to stand up for the United States as a superpower, representing the United States as a superpower, assuming the attitude that the leader is leading a superpower. We've been in this deference mode. We've been in this feeling guilty over ourselves mode. We've been behaving like we need to excuse ourselves for being so powerful, and that we're going to do something about it. We're going to limit our power. We're not going to use our power because we've done it so poorly and we've mismanaged it so badly. We've been very, very mean with all of our power, which was the message from the Obama administration. Now here comes Donald Trump, who doesn't function in the world where all of these experts are trying to analyze him. You know, it actually is kind of comical to me to watch. Even we're approaching now, 2.5 months, and still the same daily mistakes are made, analyzing Trump as somebody who's not. I understand the human nature of it. The establishment is of, by, and for politics. and everybody in it is of, by, and for politics and comports to the code of behavior of in, by, and for politics. Trump doesn't, because he doesn't have a political system. He doesn't have. There's no. Like I said, you can't bullet point Trump's political beliefs because he doesn't have them. He's got various things he wants, needs, wants to accomplish based on circumstances at the moment, not based on a philosophy. Now, there's a foundation. The foundation for Donald Trump is make America great again. It's the greatest place on earth, and we're going to build it back up, and it's going to be the greatest no matter what. Compared to whoever, it's going to be the greatest. So, I mean, you can say that, but that's not a political philosophy. That's an objective or a series of goals. Now, the next thing I want to move on to here, this is very, very fascinating to me, folks. There's something not right about this. And I haven't been able to put my finger on it, but something about this is really, really off. And I'm not talking about United Airlines. We'll get to that in a minute, because the lawyer representing Dr. David Dow had a big presser today. I'll tell you, this lawyer is a crafty marketer. He has his own logo, law firm logo, on a blue banner that he draped over the background behind him. And he went out, he said what he said, and he answered questions until there weren't any more questions. You know, he said, the lawyer said that Dr. David Dow, the passenger in question, said he was more afraid being dragged off that United flight than at any time when he was fleeing Vietnam. He was more personally afraid for himself in the situation on the United Airlines flight than he ever was trying to flee Vietnam. He's 49 years old, so I don't know when he fled Vietnam. It's, I guess, possible. This is the tail end of the wall. This is possible. Now, what I'm referring to here, let me read a headline from the New York Times. Trump undercuts Bannon, whose job may be in danger. If you read, you find there's no evidence for this. There's no evidence, but boy, there are a bunch of leakers. But they're anonymous. Here's any evidence. AP headline, is Bannon in peril? Trump comments worry his populist base. Oh, that reminds me. Interrupt myself here for another question to make my point. I have been struck by something. After the 59 Tomahawks were launched into Syria, there were a bunch of Trumpists, famous Trumpists, who were not happy and began tweeting immediately that Trump said he would never do this. This is not America first. This is not putting America first. This is not making America great again. Trump said he wouldn't be doing these kinds of military interventions anymore. So I began to think, is that true? Did Trump campaign by commonly, frequently, reliably promising there would not be any U.S. military intervention abroad? That's another question I must put to you Trumpists. Because I think back, I realize a lot of people interpreted that is what Trump meant when he said, put America first. And he was talking about NATO. With NATO, he never said NATO had to go away. He just said the people running it are not paying their fair share, and we're not going to continue to pay way beyond our share here. We're not going to bear the burden. If NATO's going to mean anything, these people got to play ball. By the same token, I was trying to remember last night. I Googled it, looked around. I couldn't find consistent, as in white paper policy positions, Trump claiming consistently and often that there would never be any military intervention around the world. But boy, did people think that's what he meant. There was a lot of interpretation. Putting America first, Making America first, making America great, America only, no more wars in the Middle East. Like, Pat Buchanan definitely thought that's what Trump meant. Pat's not happy. Pat wasn't happy when he heard the first of 59 Tomahawks got launched. He did not think, he thought those days were over. And a lot of prominent Trumpists thought those days were over and thought that's what Trump was. He's attacking trade deals, he's attacking TPP, NAFTA, and all this, and criticizing Obama for his, half-baked military maneuvers around the world. But actually assuring or promising people that the days of the United States intervening around the world were over, I don't think I remember that as a staple of the campaign. How about you, Mr. Snerdley? Do you remember that as a staple of Trump's campaign? And when you think about Trump and the campaign, and you apply what you remember from the campaign to the way he's governing, does that, like you informed me earlier, he's consistent as he can be on immigration. They're not waffling on that at all. They're not waffling on bringing jobs home, American economic upward mobility, all this stuff, fixing health care. By the way, Mark Meadows is saying they may have a replacement bill before the recess on health care. Anyway, I'll get back to this Bannon business here in just a second, because this, folks, there's something that is missing here, and not just the evidence. There's something that doesn't gel. Well, here's another one where the very public Trumpists who think that the president was going to herald a new era of isolationism, which is really what I guess that's what they thought Trump was. They thought he was an isolationist. Make America great again, and only make America. We're not going to make anybody else great again. They're on their own. We're going to make ourselves great. We're going to do whatever it takes to make ourselves great, and that's it. Well, the United States has just dropped the largest non-nuclear weapon in our arsenal on an ISIS tunnel in Afghanistan. Again, the largest non-nuclear bomb in our arsenal has for the first time been deployed. It's been dropped. It's been used on an ISIS tunnel in Afghanistan. Bomb was dropped in the Nangarhar province. The Pentagon has confirmed the blast radius, believed to be over 300 meters, of a football field, essentially. The weapon is described as the father of all bombs, not the mother of all bombs, the father of all bombs, in an obviously Pentagon sexist comment. And it is the very first time the weapon has been used in combat. So there will be a lot of people here who are going to be very, very much concerned about this. But I ask you to think back to the campaign. What did Donald Trump say about ISIS? He said, we're going to take them out. We've had a bunch of pansies and wussies that haven't had a serious moment about it. I'm going to get together with my military people. We're going to come up with a plan. We're going to wipe them out. It's only because we got a bunch of stupid leaders that we haven't wiped them out yet. So here comes the biggest bomb. Non-nuclear bomb. Dropped in Afghanistan on an ISIS location. We will see. Look, folks, I'm going to get back to this Bannon business because there's a lot to this. Well, I say there's a lot to this. A lot of questions I have about this. Because it's what's not being leaked and about who it's not being leaked. That is arousing my curiosity. But let's start on the phones in the Bronx. This is Pedro. Pedro, great to have you up first today on the EIB Network. Hello.
Yes, Rush, I'm just curious. Why should we give Trump so much leeway on flip-flops and changing his mind on so many issues when we don't afford the same to other Republicans?
Well, you don't have to if you don't want to. You don't have to give him any leeway. You are.
Oh, we are. We're letting him, we're letting him get away with stuff. Look, the West Wing is full of Democrats. You predicted it about 2 or 3 weeks ago when they wrote a piece about Bannon being in charge. You said, this is to mess with Trump's mind.
This guy's got a very good... I know exactly what he's talking about. Tell me if this is right. Pedro, I was talking about a Washington Post piece. It was a Sunday story, big long story that talked about the rivalry in the White House between the Bannon wing and the Democrat wing, and the Jared Kushner and Gary Cohn wing. And at that point, the Bannon wing was prevailing. They were winning all the arguments, and they were winning all the debates for Trump's favor. But the point was that there were a lot and are a lot of Democrats in the Trump inner circle, and that they do not believe very much of what Trump said on the campaign trail, and they are trying. This is what you're referring to, right?
Well, no, it was something about Saturday Night Live and the Time magazine when they're saying that Bannon is the president, and you said this is to make Trump to play mind games with Trump.
Okay. That's true too. The Time magazine, a cover story on the second most powerful man, the shadow president. Saturday Night Live doing the same thing, and I said what they're trying to do here, is tick off Trump. They're trying to get to Trump's ego. They're trying to tell Trump. They're trying to upset him, make everybody think that Bannon's really running the show. And so now Trump's out there telling Michael Goodwin of the New York Post, I don't need a strategist. I'm my own strategist. I didn't know Steve. I don't know Steve very well. I like Steve's a good guy. But I told him, you guys fix it or I will. This is part of what I want to get into here, but I don't have time right now. Yeah, I misspoke. 300 meters is roughly 3 football fields. 300 meters, very close to 300 yards. The primary blast range of this powerful bomb. Anyway, folks, hang in to be tough. Sit tight because we just got warmed up here. That's right, the media beside itself now over the Trump. But, you know, the news story I had on the bomb from the UK newspaper, they quote the Pentagon as calling it the father of all bombs. CNN's calling it the mother of all bombs. But the Pentagon referred to it, at least in the story I have, as the father of all bombs. Anyway, it was dropped in a northeastern province of Afghanistan on a bunch of ISIS tunnels. Great to have you back. And they're waiting on the press briefing, the White House press briefing soon underway. The media they're getting to a point now where they can't keep up. And I'll tell you, I saw a piece in the Wall Street Journal today by Daniel Henniger, and I want to read just one thing to you from it, which will give you a perspective of some in the Republican establishment about the Trump presidency. In the past few weeks, writes Mr. Henniger, the Gorsuch appointment, the Syrian strike, the meeting with China's Xi Jinping, we are finally seeing the beginning of the real Trump presidency. The real Trump presidency. Yes, you see, now Trump's turning into what they think a real president does. All this immigration stuff, screw that. All of this trade, screw that. But now we can finally embrace the guy because he's meeting with the Chi-Coms, he's bombing Syria, and he put a good conservative on the bench. Even though the Gorsuch appointment happened long ago, his confirmation was, of course, last week. But anyway, this takes me to my discussion here on the news about Steve Bannon. Have you ever seen, folks, as much coverage, commentary, newspapers, cable news networks, late-night programs, have you ever seen as much attention paid to a presidential advisor? You haven't. You have not. Interestingly, I think somebody maybe second or third place, you know, when Kissinger was Secretary of State, and I was going to say Zbigniew Brzezinski, who was the first guy Jimmy Carter met with every morning. Brzezinski met with David Rockefeller, and then he went over to the White House to tell Carter what Rockefeller said every morning. I'm sorry, folks. The Rockefeller part didn't happen except in the conspiracy books. Excuse me. But Brzezinski, who is the father by way of Mika Brzezinski on MSNBC, he was National Security Advisor, and he was an advisor. And Washington, the establishment loved him. But I can't think of any presidential advisor who's gotten anywhere near the attention Bannon has gotten. And what is that attention? Virtually all of it that you find in the drive-by media is rooted around the fact the guy's got to go. He's got to go. And every news story is oriented around that premise, that he's got to go and that we in the media, we're going to force it. We're going to get rid of the guy. It was no accident that he got a Time magazine cover in the third week of Trump's presidency, referring to him as the real president behind the scenes. That was done because all these people think that Trump has the shallowest ego ever. And they think you can really manipulate Trump by simply playing nice or mean with his ego. Saturday Night Live, as our previous caller made mention of the fact that they're treating Bannon as the real president. Bannon shows up at CPAC with Reince Priebus. Says we're going to dismantle the administrative state. They had a cow in the drive-by media and in the Washington. You can't do that. You can't, because dismantling the administrative state is another way of saying you're going to drain the swamp. And so all of the focus in the media is on Bannon. And it first started out with how dangerous he is, how he's got Trump's ear, how Trump's really doesn't have a mind of his own, but Bannon does, and Bannon's the guy steering Trump, and this is not good, that Bannon is the alt-right white supremacist nationalist, that Bannon is the guy that doesn't want the U.S. to even be in the world, and if he could put the country on a different planet, he would. It's Bannon that's trying to poison Trump's mind. Bannon that hates Jared Kushner. Bannon hates Ivanka Trump. Bannon hates everybody. Bannon's a pig. Trump's a pig. Together they're piggish, and it's dangerous, so we got to get rid of Bannon. If we get rid of Bannon, and Trump can somehow be saved to be a nice guy. And it continues. And so Michael Goodwin was at the White House the other day and scored an interview. He's in the New York Post. He's an opinion columnist, and he had an interview with Trump. And I'm going to paraphrase what he quoted Trump as saying. He said, look, you've got to remember. You got to remember, Bannon didn't come on my campaign till after I'd beaten everybody. I'd beaten all the governors. I'd beaten all the senators. He came in late. I didn't even know him. He came in late. I like him, but I am my own strategist. I don't need a strategist. Everybody read this. Bannon's on the way out. All right. It's only a minute. Bannon's on the way out. I've never seen people, the way they want to get rid of Bannon, they usually reserve for way they want to get rid of presidents they don't like Nixon or Reagan. But they want to get rid of this guy, Bannon, like nothing I've ever seen. And the stories on this rival in intensity this made-up story on collusion between Trump and Russia. Now, they can't put Bannon in that story, so they got Carter Page for that. But, man, now, just today, we have the Washington Post inside Bannon's struggle from shadow president to Trump's marked man. You know what this is like? You remember, folks, you may not remember this. Some of you will. During the days of the old Soviet Union, and when Mao Zedong was alive, let's stick with the Soviet Union. Every May Day, the Soviet Politburo leadership would go stand outside in front of the Kremlin and watch the military and mortars and rockets and so forth parade by in a show of strength. And Kremlin watchers always paid attention to who was standing nearest the premier of the day. If it was Brezhnev, who's standing to his left, who's standing to his right. If it's Yuri Andropov, same thing. If it's Gorbachev. And in that sense, we try, okay, who's in and who's out? Because communist countries never tell you. I mean, when their leaders die, they don't tell you. They even, when Mao Zedong died, they faked that for 2 years. They even photoshopped pictures of him swimming in the Yangtze River with his head bobbing up like a bobblehead. They tried to tell us he was actually swimming at age 85 or 90, whatever it was. And he'd been room temperature for many years. So trying to get this idea of who is got the Soviet premier's ear. Well, doing the same thing with Bannon. Is Bannon at the NSC? I thought he just got kicked out of the NSC. What's he doing? Did you see he was at the NSC meeting in Mar-a-Lago? But how could that happen? Because he was kicked out of it, they thought. But yet there he was. So every day they're studying Bannon. They're studying where he shows up at Priebus. Do he and Priebus still have a rivalry going? Is Bannon still trying to get rid of Priebus? Is Priebus still trying to get rid of Bannon? Does Bannon hate Kushner? Is Kushner trying to get Bannon? Do they hate each other? Is Bannon really overstepping so bad that Ivanka has had to join up with Kushner to get rid of him, and they're angling with their own dad to get rid of him? This is daily, this kind of stuff. And so the picture that has been presented, and what everybody's living off of today, is you have Trump over here who one day loved Bannon because he was just like Trump. He was a white supremacist. He was a nationalist. He was a populist. It's America first. And that's when they had to get rid of Bannon. And then the stories came that there are a lot of people inside the Trump White House don't like Bannon. He's uncouth. He's a pig. He's got too much influence. He's dangerous. So then we got stories. Jared Kushner, 36-year-old son-in-law, because he's married to Ivanka, is now in a knockdown drag-out with Bannon, and he's going to win because Jared's family. And that's what this all means. The quotes to Michael Goodwin about Bannon not being all that valuable, not being needed as a strategist. I didn't know Bannon all that long. I frankly can't even remember why I picked him, that kind of stuff. And over here you have Jared Kushner as a quasi-shadow Secretary of State. You know, Tillerson goes to Moscow, but Jared's in the Middle East. And all this palace intrigue. But there's some people never mentioned in the same way Bannon is mentioned. And those people, we've talked about him here. Gary Cohn, who is the leader of the Democrats in the Trump White House. His aide is somebody named Dina Powell. And Jared Kushner is put in that group, and that they're all aligned against Bannon. But there are other people here that we never hear about in these battles inside the White House. We never hear the name H.R. McMaster. We don't hear any of the names of the prominent people of the National Security Council. It's all Bannon, and it's all Jared. And it's all oriented. I'm telling you what, the media is thinking that they can force Bannon out by playing to Trump's ego. And they think this New York Post interview that Trump gave to Michael Goodwin is proof positive that they are succeeding. But I don't think the Bannon-Kushner battle is the battle that's actually worth paying attention in there. I go back to this Washington Post story that's easily over a month old now. And the Washington Post story had Bannon and Stephen Miller and a number of Trump loyalists in an ongoing battle with the so-called Democrats that Trump had picked to be in the inner circle, Gary Cohn, Dina Powell. And so I looked into that. I actually checked into it, and I found out that the Washington Post story was actually true. That battle was going on. And Jared Kushner, he was in it, but not prominently. So this was, I mean, he's always been positioned as anti-Bannon. I don't think that's really what's happening now. I think all of this is missing it. I think all of it is a bit of a smokescreen. Because even, you know, the Washington Post has their story, inside Bannon's struggle for shadow president, from shadow president to Trump's marked man. New York Times, Trump undercuts Bannon, whose job may be in danger. AP, is Bannon in peril? Trump comments worry his populist base. In every one of these stories, there's no evidence. Honest to God, the New York Times, all of this is reported, but it's from anonymous sources who do not provide any evidence. It's just that the media is choosing to believe the anonymous sources. One person with firsthand knowledge of internal White House dynamics who asked not to be identified insisted that no immediate changes were likely. Well, then why are you doing these stories? If no immediate changes are likely, why in the world, what's the hubbub here? Goes back to, if there's no evidence of Trump colluding with Russia, then what the heck are all these stories about? Well, they're trying to make news and create news here. But I think it's quite telling, folks, that we don't have any stories involving intrigue about Gary Cohn. And we don't have any stories involving intrigue about H.R. McMaster. I mean, these people are in Trump's inner circle as well. The same with Dina Powell. The stories are universally about Bannon and how he's got to go and how he's the problem and how he's got the presence here. And this guy is so off the mainstream. He's the white nationalist. He's the populist. He's got Trump's ear and he's poison and he's dangerous. And if the truth be known, what Bannon is probably doing is trying to prevent establishment types from succeeding in co-opting and influencing Trump totally. That would be my guess. That's what I think the real battle going on in there is. The fact that it's only Bannon mentioned, and it's always Bannon that has to go, and Bannon the problem. What? It's just too pat. And it's just too predictable. The media always focuses on the people they consider the threats. Remember my old adage, the Democrats will always tell us who they fear by trying to take them out. The media is the Democrats, and it'll always tell us who they fear. And believe me, they don't want to get rid of Bannon because it's going to help Trump. They don't want to force Bannon out of there because it's going to make Trump a better president. That's not what they're about. With these people, it is all political. It is all ideological. A brief timeout. We'll come back. I promise I'll get back to your calls next. All right, now look at this. Goes along with what we have been discussing. It's a story at the Fox Business Network. NATO Secretary General Stoltenberg, quote, European NATO allies have really started to move in the right direction on meeting their spending goals. Okay, so Trump on the campaign trail says NATO's worthless, it's got to go. The members aren't paying their fair share. To hell with it. Why should we defend all them? They don't spend any of their money on defense. It's about time they shared the burden. You can't do that. You can't attack NATO. NATO's sacrosanct. Well, the hell with it. I'm doing it, and I'm going to keep doing it. Then he becomes president and continues to attack NATO and goes to a meeting, and he tells the world how NATO is funded. How many of you knew before Trump became president that there are no dues paid to NATO? Do you know how member nations continue their membership? They promise to spend minimum 2% of their GDP on defense. And if they don't do that, then they are said to be in arrears. And this is what Trump was talking about. Now, all of a sudden, Trump has raised holy hell. He's called them out. And now the Secretary General says, you know what? A bunch of these European NATO allies have really started to move in the right direction on meeting spending goals, meaning they're now making adjustments in their budgets, and they're spending the required 2% on their own defense as required for membership. And so Trump then says, you know what? I like NATO. Why not? It's a success story. It's not a flip-flop. Everything's a negotiation. He starts out by threatening, take the most outrageous position. I'm getting rid of it. It's a waste. It doesn't help us at all. You can't do that. You can't do that. You watch me. Everything's a negotiation. Some of it based in common sense, some of it politically oriented, of course. I'm going to get started here with Joseph in Pittsburgh. May not finish for the break. But, Joseph, how are you? Great to have you on the program, sir. Hello.
I'm awesome. I'm a first-time caller. Thank you for having my call. I just had heard some stuff on the news about Trump only going to be first-term president, and I just wanted to say that everybody that I know, I work in the oil field, I'm also a veteran, everyone that I know and speak to as a core still will vote for Trump again and still believe in what he's doing, and I go to sleep at night and sleep really well knowing that he is my president.
So you're not troubled by the attack in Syria or the Tomahawk missile launch. You're not worried by this giant bomb in Afghanistan. You're worried about Trump getting cozy with the CHICOM leader?
No, I'm not worried. I think he has our best interests at heart, and as a core, I think that's what it's all about. The way it looks to the media and the way it's presented to us is a completely different story.
All right, Joseph, I appreciate it. It's hard to sit here and in a blanket fashion say what most Trump voters are saying, but I think there are a lot of Trump voters who would applaud and echo what Joseph just said. They trust that whatever Trump's doing, it is in our interest not to sell us out. And we will continue right after this. I say it, and it happens. So Spicer just made the point I just made about at NATO. He's in the press briefing now. The jackals in the media trying to get him to say something else about Hitler today, but he hadn't gone there yet. Instead, he said, well, the president is very, very, very happy with what's happening in NATO. Remember, he called them out for not spending their fair share on defense, the GDP, and now that they're moving in the right direction, the president thinks that's progress. It's exactly right. You have to listen to Trump in a non-political way. When Trump starts talking on the campaign trail, NATO's pointless. It's worthless. We're paying the lion's share, and we're not. These people aren't contributing, and that's going to end. Just make America great. Put America first. People think, wow, we're going to get out of NATO finally. He's going to close up NATO. No. If you listen very carefully, he was complaining that the other members were not doing their part. Now they are moving in that direction. NATO fixed. Never said he was going to get rid of it. And if he did, it was part of the style that Trump uses here. And I'll guarantee you that, folks, this is one of the ways that it matters. You know, the Obama administration didn't have one person who had ever worked in business. Not one Obama cabinet member had ever seriously had a job, run a company, met a payroll in the American economy. And as such, no way of understanding how business is done, from negotiations to any other aspect of it. In fact, people like in Obama's cabinet were arrogant and condescending and looking down on those people as a bunch of shysters and a bunch of cheats and people that kill their customers and are destroying the planet. They have, again, no commonality. The Obama administration was filled with people that had deep resentment for people successful in the private sector, in business or what have you, with no way of understanding them or relating to them at all, and no desire to. Much of the Washington establishment, particularly the Democrat side of it, has the same view of American business and the private sector. And here comes Mr. Quintessential Businessman entering their world, and they are not equipped to understand how he operates or what he's doing. They're plugging him and his business techniques into their political models, and it doesn't work. I have tried, since Trump got into this race, to tell people, and if you've been listening for the duration, that you know I have done everything humanly possible to try to explain Donald Trump to them. It's not that hard, but these people have to be able to get themselves out of the closed cocoon, the closed caucus in which they live and operate. And they haven't done that. They've tried to find ways to plug him into how and what they do. And in that case, he's always going to look like a failure to them, because they will never understand how somebody like him, and he's not alone, his cabinet's got people like him, and they'll never understand how these people operate, how they have to operate, what's necessary for business success. Business success is not determined by government policy. It's not determined by regulation. The people succeed in business have to overcome all the obstacles put in their way by people like Democrats and Obama. That's what Trump knows, how to overcome these guys, how to get the things they put in his way out of the way, while they don't even know what's happening. And that would go for much of the political commentariat, too, folks, that are totally immersed in politics and know nothing else, other than they swear allegiance to free markets. But that's about it. Here's Raj in Minneapolis. Raj, I'm glad you waited. It's great to have you on the program. How are you doing?
Good. Raj, so I'm an American of Indian origin, and I am super sad about the media stories about Bannon being pushed out. I should be the last person who should be sad based on all of the media commentary about his alt-right links, but I am super sad. And I did some research on Jared Kushner, and I was amazed to find the parallels between him and Mark Mezvinsky, who's married to Chelsea Clinton. Both are elite, wealthy, East Coast liberals who have convicted criminals as fathers. And I'm like,
hey, Raj, Raj, hang on a minute. Are you saying that Kushner and Bannon are both East Coast elites?
No. I'm talking about Mark Mezvinsky, who's married to Chelsea Clinton, and Jared Kushner, who's married to Ivanka Trump. Both of these presidential candidate
Okay. I'm having to follow you on the transcription of your call, and it's tough. So you're talking, you're drawing an analogy between Jared Kushner and Mark Mizvinsky?
Exactly. Right. So they're both.
I thought your problem was with Bannon.
No, my problem is not at all with Bannon. I want Bannon to continue. I mean, I think his thoughts, his sad eyes, the way his heart seems to beat for America is what Trump needs in an advisor, not the Jared Kushners and the neocons and the globalists of that kind.
Oh, Jared Kushner and the neocons. So you think Jared Kushner and the neocons are aligning against Bannon to get him out of there so they convert Trump into the newest version of the neocon president?
Well, whatever. I mean, I just don't think bombing Syria was a good idea. I mean, he saw some dead babies, so, oh my God.
Well, the Wall Street Journal loved it, Raj. The Wall Street Journal loved bombing Syria, and they're probably having orgasms here over the bomb in Afghanistan.
Exactly. So I don't like it at all. I think Bannon needs to be back. Kushner needs to be out. Trump needs to stop indulging his daughter.
Okay, let me share a story with you here from the Washington Free Beacon that I was made aware of last night, Raj. Now, hang on, don't hang up, because I want to get your feedback to this, but wait until I ask you your opinion before you say anything. This is a story that actually it was at 2 o'clock yesterday afternoon, but I didn't see it until last night. Washington Free Beacon. The Washington Free Beacon is not the drive-by media. Headline, New Front in White House Civil War as Kushner asserts authority at the National Security Council. Now, stick with me on this, folks. It's by Adam Credo, he's the writer. White House senior advisor Jared Kushner is leading an unprecedented effort to meddle in the White House National Security Council, causing mayhem for senior staff who say the president's son-in-law is interfering in key foreign policy debates, according to Trump administration officials who spoke to the Washington Free Beacon. Kushner has taken aggressive action to micromanage the National Security Council, overshadowing even recently installed advisor H.R. McMaster, according to sources both inside and outside the White House, who described Kushner's behavior as highly unusual and damaging to the country's national security infrastructure. So, Raj, let me ask you, where do you think this story comes from? Who's leaking this? Because somebody is dumping all over Jared. Somebody is really trying to take Jared out here, not Bannon.
I don't know. I mean, I'm not even going by the stories. I'm reading some of them, but in my opinion, the biggest mistake that Trump made was pushing out Michael Flynn. McMaster is another guy who's a, neocon hawk. We don't want these guys in there. Michael Flynn would have been great.
All right. Okay. Well, yeah. So you are a Trumpist who is worried here that Trump's doing things that you thought he promised he wouldn't be doing.
Exactly, and I think he's being led by...
And therefore, somebody's making him do it, and that's what you're saying. You think Bannon's a safeguard, so somebody's making him. You think it's Kushner, who's the young neocon, and they're pushing Trump into doing these things.
I think so. I mean, that's the explanation that I get from reading all this.
Okay, I know you said you're not reading things, which is why I wanted to explain it to you and hopefully capturing your thoughts on it. Now, this story here, folks, this doesn't fit. This doesn't fit anything out there. You need hosts like me to be able to spot these things, sort of like reading the stitches on the fastball or recognizing the changeup before it's thrown. Now, let's put this in context or in some sort of, not a timeline, but you know as well as I do that for the past, well, the entirety of the Trump presidency, the long knives have been out for Bannon. to one degree or another. For days at a time, it's intense. Bannon's got to go. Bannon's a problem. Bannon's a pig. Bannon's this. He's white supremacist. Then it goes dormant for a while, and then it reemerges. Something happens. Bannon once again's a bad guy. Got to get Bannon out. Seems like the whole White House West Wing is leaking against Bannon. And in the most recent stories, the arch enemy of Bannon is said to be Jared Kushner, and that it is Priebus and Bannon who have now aligned. They were originally portrayed as enemies competing for power. But in the last month or so, the stories have had Priebus and Bannon lined up together, defending their front from Jared and whoever he's with, Ivanka. And then in the midst of all of this, here comes a story dumping all over Jared and accusing Jared of trying to take over the entire National Security Council operation. Now, who would be bothered by that if that is indeed happening? Why, it would be none other than the National Security Advisor. Who's that? Can you give me a name, Mr. Snerdley? That'd be H.R. McMaster, who was tabbed one day at Mar-a-Lago. He was there with General Kelly on the big sofa, and the drive-bys went orgasmic. Oh, what a brilliant choice. This may save the Trump presidency for a day and a half. Oh, there's nobody better than H.R. McMaster. He's great. He's Harvard, he's Oxford, he's Cambridge. Went on and on and on. And in all of this, folks, in all this Bannon stuff, in all this palace intrigue, we never see stories involving him or Gary Cohn or Dina Powell. And now we have a story, new front in White House civil war as Kushner asserts authority at NSC. Now, up to now, Kushner trying to ace Bannon out, that's been a good thing. Kushner may be a little young, 36, may not have any experience, but at least he's not Bannon. And at least Trump's son-in-law, so he's not going anywhere. But now, out of the blue, the long knives are out for the president's son-in-law, because it's not Bannon trying to take something over, it's Kushner. So somebody's feeling threatened, or somebody is not feeling threatened and is striking preemptively. Somebody in there doesn't like Jared, folks, and that's the first time you've heard this. Other than Bannon, I mean. Supposedly. What if you were to learn? I'm going to withhold the speculation. I'm afraid I might be right, and that would get me a little bit more attention than I want right now. So I'll reserve that for maybe next hour. Half my brain tied behind my back just to make it fair, as we have more fun than human beings should be allowed to have. Here at the Rush Limbaugh program on the EIB network, Astoria, Oregon. Jim, you're next, and it's great to have you here with us. Hi.
Hey, Rush. God, thanks for taking my call. God bless you, you know. In this part of the area, it's like listening to Rush Limbaugh is like Radio Free America.
Thank you very much. I understand what you mean by that. I really do.
Yeah, well, this morning my wife was really upset because every news outlet, including the social media, everybody was stomping on United Airlines. And I was just wondering whether the same people who are stomping on United Airlines are the same people who are stomping on Trump, whether this might all be, to try and destroy American business.
Well, you are correct to notice that there is a total, I'll call it a gang up on United. However, it didn't happen out of the blue. United is a significant player in the story. I mean, there would not be a story had United not dragged a guy off an airplane and had the cops beat him up. However, you have the media all in on this. I mean, all the ingredients for the perfect media story are here. You have evil, as in United. You have the evil corporation that doesn't care if its customers die. You have a minority and a victim who happens to be an immigrant. It's made to order that this guy's getting the shaft. And what is done here, not just reporting the story. I mean, you can't not report this. But the effort here is to make it about much more than it is. And this is what you are detecting. This is what your wife is detecting. It is overboard in terms of coverage and intensity and so forth, because it allows for a subliminal message to accompany whatever reporting. And the subliminal message is that America is flawed, that America mistreats immigrants and minorities, that the cops are just wanton criminals themselves that beat up innocent people. I mean, this story has many of the knee-jerk ingredients that make the media breathless with excitement. And so they can't let it go. And because it offers an opportunity to characterize certain aspects of America that they politically oppose or disagree with. But again, this is not to exonerate United. I mean, United did what it did. They ordered what happened to happen and so forth. There are consequences to that. So you can't say it's a media conspiracy in that sense, but it does provide them the opportunity to take it way beyond what it's about. 8 years of passivity under Barack Hussein. Oh, this is what American strength looks like, with messages to both enemies and allies that we haven't been sending in many, many moons. Yeah, I know. Just look at this. Man, oh man. Greetings, my friends. Welcome back. I just saw a story here that PMSNBC has now got twice the audience of CNN at night. Did I just see this right? Yeah, prime time. 2 times nothing is nothing. Of course, if you take CNN out of the airports, what do they have? And I don't know if the airports are rated, but is that true? CNN's, you drive down or walk down any concourse in the bar, whatever, the CNN's on it. I think it's almost exclusive arrangement that you take that away from them. Not all airports. I wouldn't know, so that's why I'm having to ask you. It's not all airports. Well, that's a lot of them, isn't it? Anyway, folks, great to have you back. Welcome back. Rush Limbaugh here, the Excellence in Broadcasting Network at 800-282-2882. The email address is lrushbo@eibnet.us. The lawyer for Dr. David Dow appeared in a major press conference today. This was prior to the program beginning. He's a Chicago lawyer by the name of Thomas Demetrio. He might pronounce it Demetrio. I did not hear his name pronounced, but the guy's his firm is Demetrio and Corbano or some such thing. I don't remember it. He's got an icon, he's got a logo, and he's got a blue banner that he hangs behind the podium. And he updated people on the condition of the doctor. He's going to have nasal reconstructive surgery. A broken nose, he got some sinus problems out there. Suffered a concussion. He's still in the hospital. He never made it to Louisville to see the patients that were waiting on him the next day. And what this lawyer basically said is, and I'm paraphrasing him, his message to United was, you had better agree to settle this out of court or else, because if it goes to a jury, you don't have a prayer. So just a couple of sound bites to give you the flavor for it. A portion of his remarks, soundbite 1.
The fact of the matter is, I have concluded the following, that for a long time, airlines, United in particular, have bullied us. They have treated us less than maybe we deserve. I conclude, based upon hundreds, literally hundreds, of tales of woe, of mistreatment by United, is that here's what we want as a society. We want fairness in how people treat us. We want respect, and we want dignity.
Right. And that's what Dr. David Dow did to get on the United flights. That's what we wanted. His message, by the way, was not just to United. He was speaking to all of corporate America. He went through the thing. He said, yeah, people aren't nice anymore, but he's bullying everybody. And we don't like being mistreated. We don't like being bullied. We want respect, and we want dignity. And now he's going to spearhead the new project here of establishing passengers' rights.
Just treat us with respect. Make us feel like you really care. And I must say, I don't believe it's limited to the airline industry.
Here we go.
I think corporate America needs to understand that we all want to be treated in the same manner, with the same respect and the same dignity that they would treat their own family members. If they do that, wouldn't it be great? So, will there be a lawsuit? Yeah, probably. But Dr. Dow, to, I believe, his great credit, has come to understand that he's the guy. He's the guy to stand up for passengers going forward.
Yeah, as he's dragged out of the plane, he's got to be the guy to stand up for passengers. Dr. David, this is why the media loves it. The guy went way beyond United. All of corporate America needs to understand that we wanted to be treated fairly. And we want to be respected. And we want to know that you really care. What? Oh, I'm telling you it is. I know it's going to resonate with some. This is where the media is salivating here. It's eating this up. The guy was reading out of the left-wing playbook here for half of his press conference. I'm not. Let me withdraw that. I'm not meaning to inject politics into this. I'm not being critical of the guy. I'm still reacting to the guy who called and want to know why the media is making such big deal of this. And I just, because it has every ingredient that the media gets fired up about. Not just about United. It's about all the things wrong in this country that this story personifies or encapsulates. Now, I was given this soundbite. I'm not crazy about playing this soundbite, but I've got people telling me on the staff, you need to play it and explain it. It happened last night. Grab soundbite number 4. Last night on CNN's Anderson Cooper 97. The guests, Jeffrey Lord, the American Spectator, our old buddy, and Jen Psaki, the former White House communications director, and she was instrumental in running the failed and embarrassed Hillary campaign. And they were having a discussion about the FBI obtaining a FISA warrant to surveil Carter Page. And Jeffrey Lord mentions me in his comments, and it's Psaki's reaction that people tell me I need to address.
Rush Limbaugh spent a considerable period of time on this today, and I use Rush as indicative of the conservative media, saying that this whole FISA warrant story, in essence, proves that there was no collusion, and that the big problem here is, I can see my friend Jen rolling her eyes, is the Obama administration and the leaks, et cetera, et cetera. So this is not going to go away, at least for that reason.
Well, I'm not sure Rush Limbaugh is the arbiter of mainstream news, just to start, but the second piece of news that broke on a CNN report yesterday was that Democratic...
I'm not sure that Rush Limbaugh is the arbiter of mainstream. What does that mean? I mean, I know what arbiter is, but I don't know what she's saying. Is she saying that I'm not qualified to analyze mainstream news? Or is she saying that my analysis is irrelevant because I am not the arbiter? I mean, you should have heard what they said about you on CNN last night. Well, I heard it, and I said, what's the big deal? She's a Hillaryite. The point that I made yesterday, that the real news about this FISA warrant is not what they all tried to say. Yes, oh, it's looking bad for Trump, man. Carter Page. No, the news is that the Obama administration was spying on the Trump campaign. That's the news. They were surveilling, and I'll tell you the reason why they found Carter Page. Carter Page, to this day, at the time, he had never met Trump. He was a volunteer to the Trump campaign. He was not an official member of the Trump campaign. He had never met Trump. He was not on the Trump campaign staff. He's a volunteer. He had worked in Russia 10 years prior and had invested in a Russian energy conglomerate called Gazprom. And so they surveilled this guy, and I'll tell you why. Once they got the FISA warrant, which everybody's been denying all of these weeks now, once they got the FISA warrant, then that allowed them to spy on the whole campaign, not just him. Because if you're going to surveil Carter Page under the pretext here that he's a participant in the collusion, well, now you've got a wide open door to use the surveillance you have permission to do on him to examine the whole campaign. That's what this was all about, and that's what I was saying. And the fact I'm not the arbiter of mainstream. Snerdley, what do you think she's saying? I'm not even sure what she's saying. You're clueless. First time I've ever seen you clueless. You know what she's saying, but you don't know how to say what she's saying. You mean without being profane, or you just don't know how to... Oh, okay. I'll tell you what it indicates. Folks, if you want to get it down to the base level, what she's really saying is that I'm not mainstream, that I'm kook, and therefore not qualified. I don't know, but it's insider, outsider. I'm not establishment, therefore I don't rate, I don't count in her world. That's what that means. Pure and simple. I think that doesn't matter. I don't care what. And it's badge of honor for me. Don't misunderstand. Let me take a break here. We'll come back. I want to get back to phone calls. I've got the Trump sound bites on Russia and how we are perhaps at an all-time low in our relationship with Russia. This is classic. Now, the commentary, oh, my God. Oh, my God. Oh, no, it's at that bad. Oh, my God. And Trump's, oh, no. They're clueless as to what Trump is doing, why he would say this. The fact is it's probably much better than it has been in a long time, except Trump just doesn't want him to know that yet. Back in a second. Here we are, El Rushbo, a man, a legend, a way of life. Thank the Lord, Rush Limbaugh's on. We go to Houston. This is Ron. Great to have you with us. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing good, Rush. Dittos from Houston.
Thank you very much.
I wanted to comment, if I could, on your opening segment about the ideology or lack thereof of President Trump. I think a lot of us who supported him, throughout this campaign and now through his presidency, we realize that he understands basically all classes of Americans, unlike many of the politicians that run the country before. He doesn't think right or left. He thinks the difference between what is right and what is wrong. And we know that he's well-grounded. He's a very successful businessman. I mean, we sincerely believe, and this is why we support him, that he does want to make America great. I think that we can sum up what his ideology is in one word, and that's basically winning. He's all about winning, and he gets things done. I mean, everyone remembers from the campaign trail where he was commenting over and over that America doesn't win anymore. We don't have any victories. And just getting on the point that you mentioned at the outset about using his business acumen, he's able to, achieve extraordinary results in all of these negotiations, which in fact aren't negotiations. Most of the time it's just strategies, how he's getting things done. And he's doing everything that he can to make America great. I mean, the man doesn't settle for second best. All you have to do is look at his life, look at his family. He's not about being second best.
Okay, let me ask you some questions then, just to sort of nail this down. You do not consider Trump to have flip-flopped by launching the Tomahawks into Syria. You do not consider Trump to have flip-flopped to now say, you know what, I don't mind the Export-Import Bank. You don't consider Trump to have flip-flopped by now praising NATO.
No, absolutely not, Rush. In fact, going back to the point about his business acumen, you have to be opportunistic. And when he sees opportunities present themselves, he's going to seize those moments to get an advantage because of the situation. And it's all designed to achieve what needs to be achieved. And he's not going to be sidetracked by what people think or say based on what his actions are. He remains laser focused on what the goals are.
Let me tell you why I brought this up, folks. Thanks, Ron, very much for the call. Starting sometime last night, I'm immersed in show prep never ends. So I'm running across a number of different columns and blog posts that are across the spectrum, left wing, right wing. And there were quite a few of them that were very, very convinced that this was going to blow up Trump's coalition, that this constituted Trump lying to the people that elected him, that all these flip-flops, and all of a sudden NATO's fine, dropping bombs on Syria, Export-Import Bank, all these things that Trump had rejected that now look like flip-flops. And these people were convinced that this is who Trump's always been, that he lied to his base. His base stupidly believed the lies, dumbly believed the lies. But now that Trump has exposed himself, that Trump's base is going to abandon him or start questioning everything. And it's such a sad thing that it's not taken very long for Trump to totally betray the people that voted for him. And I read these, honestly, I'm not exaggerating. I read those with amusement, is why I opened the program today the way I did, by focusing on, again, how amazing it is that so many people who are considered to be political experts haven't the slightest idea, even yet, why Trump got elected, what his base of supporters think about him. They have no idea. They have no clue understanding the connection that Trump's base voters have for him. And that's why I opened the program today. I was because I often have said that Trump has no ideology, and I wish he did. I wish he had conservative tendency, but he doesn't. But I went further today in a never-ending quest to help the confused understand it, and that's what Ron was responding to here. I said Trump essentially doesn't even have, we've got communism, we have Bushism, we had Clintonism, but there isn't a Trumpism. Bullet point for me what the Trump political philosophy is, and you can't do it because he's not a political guy. Now, Ron said there's one bullet point, winning. There's some things you have to understand about Trump. He loves America. He wants to be the greatest place on earth. He thinks political people have made it the mess that it is. And he's been very open and upfront about how he goes about accomplishing things, and that's totally ignored. And it's still, I think, the arrogance of people who think or actually are in the establishment, think they're part of it or actually are. They cannot help themselves, apparently. They take this guy, Trump, who is not a politician in the career sense, and they plug him into their system and analyze what he does and what he says, the way they analyze professional politicians and what they say and do, and they miss it. Which is not news. The news is they're not even getting close to understanding it yet, despite the never-ending efforts on the part of people like me to help them figure it out. Ben in Gaithersburg, Maryland, you're next. Welcome. Great to have you. Hi.
Thanks, Russ. To answer your question from the top of the show, I can tell you with 100% accuracy, since I watched over 100 Trump rallies, that he never once promised that he would not use military force. All he said, time and time again, was that our military has become run down and very weak compared to the past, and he was going to build it back up.
Exactly right.
So strong, we would never have to use it.
Yep.
Hopefully, we would never have to use it. He never promised not to use it.
Yes, he did. He said we're going to kick ISIS's ass.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, well, he did say he was going to bomb the S out of ISIS, and apparently he did that today as well. But he never said he wasn't going. In fact, showing peace through strength was his obvious point.
So tell me something here, Dan. Why are all these people out there saying Trump lied, Trump misled these people? He bombed Syria. He bombed Syria. These people, he would never do that.
And now that has become the dominant story in the news the last 2 days, was that he's changing all his campaign positions because they desperately need to pivot from the Trump collusion story that blew up in their face.
Yeah, okay, I see it. But they haven't given up on that. I mean, that goes dormant, like the United Airlines story covered it a bit. And now dropping this bomb has covered it. But you ought to, I mean, the conspiracy theories that the left comes up with to explain what Trump's doing to take the collusion story off the front page, these people are funnel. I mean, they're hilariously insane and getting better, or worse. And we go back to the phones. This is Sean in Palm Beach Gardens, Florida. Hi, Sean.
Hi, Russ. Thank you so much for taking my call.
My pleasure.
I am irate, if you want to be honest. I am a blogger. I'm a political blogger, and I wrote over 200 blogs for this man, for President Trump, in favor of him, on what he campaigned on. And what I'm seeing these past couple weeks You know, I voted for Team Bannon. I did not vote for the president's daughter. I did not vote for Jared Kushner, two Democrats.
Now, wait, hold it just a second. Sean, you had to know, because it happened in the campaign, you had to know that Ivanka and Jared have his ear. You had to. I mean, I know what you mean, so you weren't voting for them, but you know that, I mean, that's family. You know that they've got his ear and that he's loyal to them.
I knew I knew they would have his ear. I did not know they would have so much pull. Because, you know, it's like just recently it came out that Kevin Hassett is coming on board. Well, he's for outsourcing. Trump was supposed to be anti-immigration, anti-outsourcing. You know, he's flip-flopped within the past few days. I mean, NATO, he was against it. Now he's for it. China, controls the currency. I mean, now no, America. And it's like, and then this bombing in Syria, at first I was like, you know what? Yes, I guess we had to do it. But then I'm hearing rumors that Ivanka saw the pictures of the babies, and Ann Coulter made a great point. She said Republicans don't do things for humanitarian reasons. I mean, there are children dying everywhere. There are children being shot in Chicago. I mean, is Ivanka going to say, hey, Daddy, go to Chicago and bomb Chicago because people are getting shot? I mean, and I know that's obviously a gross exaggeration, but it's very upsetting. I mean, I am talking to a man that's a Kurdish fighter for Kurdistan, and I'm asking him about the gassing in Syria. You know what he said to me? And he's fighting with our men against ISIS. He's sending me videos of what's going on the battlefield. I mean, these guys don't mess around. They're killing ISIS. He hates ISIS. He hates Assad. He'd like America to come in and get rid of Assad. And I said something about the people that were gassed. He said, I don't care about them. They're Arab pigs. And I'm thinking, then who are you? It's a mess over there. And it's like, it would be great in a perfect world to make a safe world and a better world for everyone. But, I mean, we spent $95 million. I think that's the figure for the Tomahawk missiles. And what did we accomplish? That we're strong and that we're not going to watch people suffer? People are suffering every day. That $95 million, hey, could have helped fund the failing Obamacare. I mean, the president has not passed one piece of domestic legislation. Has he done some good things? Yes, he has. Am I still behind him? Yes, I am. But I have some valid concerns. I voted for a non-establishment, a non-globalist, a non-Democrat. I voted for a Republican. I voted for someone who was going to bring back the middle class, and tax reform isn't going to be until next year, until after Obamacare. The wall, that's been on the back burner. I'm upset.
I hear that. Loud and clear. What I was, before you were halfway through, I was thinking of trying to play devil's advocate with you on a couple of things, but you have covered the spectrum. You want me to play devil's advocate just a couple things and get your take on?
Yes, I would. I would love your take.
Well, it's not my take. I just want to give you another way of looking at something and see how you react to it. Let's talk about NATO. And I've mentioned this earlier today, so if you've heard it, folks, please beg your indulgence while I go through it here with Sean. During the campaign, you're right. The president complained loudly that we were doing dumb things in NATO because most of the member states were not paying their fair share, that we were paying much of way outside burden, and we weren't getting anything for it, and it was stupid and dumb, and if it didn't change, then NATO may as well just go away. So people hear that. Right on, man. Right on. We don't need to prop up these socialist democracies that won't pay their fair share. Right on, Trump, you go. Now, Trump says all this, and he raises hell, and then he starts calling them out for not paying their dues. Now, guess what? These nations, all of a sudden, we got a statement today from the NATO Secretary General that all of these nations Trump called out are now stepping up and paying their dues, meaning they're spending 2% of GDP on defense, or they're intending to, they're allocating it. And so, in that sense, Trump is now saying NATO's okay because he made everybody play straight and contribute their fair share and essentially saved it. And he would tell you that his opener here during the campaign, ripping into NATO as something worthless and outmoded, was simply to get people to step up, pay their fair share, and he's done that. And therefore, this is a success, not a flip-flop. If somebody explained it to you that way, what would your reaction be?
then I would say he's a great manipulator, and he accomplished what no one else has been able to accomplish. And,
Okay, let's go to the Chi-Coms. You mentioned the Chinese and currency manipulation. And you're right. All during the campaign, he beat up China every day. He beat him up on the currency manipulation. He beat him up on trade. He beat him up on outsmarting our own negotiators. And he said it wasn't going to go on any longer. Now, all of a sudden, guess what happens? He has a meeting with the Chi-Com leader at Mar-a-Lago. He has a phone call with the Chi-Com leader, and the Chi-Com leader is now telling the North Koreans to stand down or the Chinese are going to abandon them. Now, that has to be, no matter how you look at it, that has to be looked at in certain ways as a success, because I'll guarantee you this, Sean, there is no way Barack Obama, I don't know anybody else, who would have made the Chinese, convinced the Chinese to abandon their communist blood brother North Koreans. So, yeah, he can say, I was threatening them. I told them what for. I told them we're going to screw around. They keep manipulating the currency. We're going to get it back in the way we trade. And now he's converted this Xi Jinping leader in China into, well, it's all apparent. I mean, the threat that they made to North Korea is real. And North Korea has been out there launching missiles. They haven't been aiming them right, but they're threatening to do all kinds of things to us. And Trump threatened them, and the Chinese told the North Koreans he's not bluffing. Do not think he's bluffing. The Chinese went to the North Koreans and said, do not look at this guy the way you looked at previous presidents. He intends to take you out if you keep this up. Now, people would tell you this is a success in terms of foreign policy with the Chinese.
Okay. No, I agree. Like I said, he's done some good things, but it's just, it's hard to...
Let's look at Syria.
Everything.
Let's look at Syria. You made the point that we can't go everywhere where there's suffering, children suffering. We shouldn't have Ivanka because she sees pictures that make her cry, go to the president and bomb the people responsible for it. The reason you have a serious complaint here is Trump's tweets during the campaign. There were numerous tweets, and I'm sure you remember them, where he basically told Obama, don't go into Syria. It's a no-win. You don't even know if you're going to hit the right target. If you hit the wrong target, you got a bigger mess than ever. We need to spend that money in America, put America first, make America great. Don't waste it in Syria. And yet here he is, launching 59 Tomahawks into Syria. But what is the message sent? That those 59 Tomahawks, while the Chi-Com leader is having dinner with Trump at Mar-a-Lago, probably went a long way to convincing the Chi-Com leader to tell the North Koreans, look, this guy's a madman. You can't look at him as previous. If he says he's going to take you out, he's not bluffing. So those missiles at launch into Syria, it sends messages to Russia. It sends a message to the Norks and to the Chinese. And we've had 8 years of passivity with Barack Obama where whatever anybody around the world wanted to do to America, we just huffed and puffed and did nothing. And with Donald Trump, you want to do something to America, there's going to be a price. And if you offend our sensibilities and say it's a wanton violation of human rights like gas attacks, we're not going to put up with it. And says and does what he does. So the question is, are these flip-flops and betrayals, or is it something else? And you've decided that they're flip-flops and betrayals, and you're not happy with it. Would you like to plug your blog? Would you like to give us the name of your blog?
Sure. It's gopgirl.blogspot.com.
gopgirl.blogspot.com. Okay.
Yes, gopgirlblog.blogspot.com.
Okay.
And I'm fair to the president. You know what? I mean, I will always call him on all of his, good things. I mean, I just saw that we're deporting, I think it's 4,000 Somalis, and, I posted that on Facebook. I mean, I will always tout things that I think are great. But, I mean, I do get concerned when I see globalists that may be able to persuade him to go in a direction that I don't want him to go.
We've been talking about today, and there's no question that there is a battle among the staff in the White House. And there's some neocons in there who are trying to, they want war in the Middle East, and they'd love for Trump to do it. Your sensibilities in that, in terms of being concerned about it, I think are accurate. But I don't think we're getting the whole story on that. I just had a story of the Washington Free Beacon about how the national security people are dumping on Jared Kushner today, Sean. Somebody leaked to the Washington Free Beacon that Jared Kushner is trying to take over the National Security Council. Not Bannon, Jared Kushner. Somebody is leaking against the president's own son-in-law and, by extension, his own daughter. Now, who would be doing this? Well, it has to be somebody at the National Security Council who doesn't want Jared getting a foothold in there. Names, I won't go there. Sean, look, I appreciate the call. I got to go. Don't be surprised if your server has been swamped and taken offline. That always happens. We mentioned a website here, and the volume takes it down for a while. But you'll be back. It won't be long. Give me that address one more time.
www.gopgirlblog.blogspot.com.
Okay.
And I'm anything but politically correct.
Okay, I can tell that. and I like that. So, and we'll also link to your blog at rushlimbaugh.com. As I say, we've shut you down right now, or soon will, but you'll be back. Your opportunity is to maximize all of this attention, and I don't doubt that you'll be able to do that. Thanks for the call. We got to go. Back after this. And I have a little question for you. I'm just throwing it out there, folks. It's one of these questions just to ponder it. I'm not throwing it out there intending to make a point. But if you have an immigration and refugee policy, which Trump, he tried twice, the travel ban, nobody from Syria, until further notice, nobody from Syria, no refugees from Syria, right? Okay. And then Assad starts gassing his own people. How do you refuse Syrian refugees after Assad gas? Well, I'm just throwing it out. For some people, it may not be a problem. It's not our job to save the world. I don't care. We didn't bomb them. I'm just throwing it out there. No express purpose. A couple of things I didn't get to today that I'm going to get to. There's two stories. One from the Huffing and Puffing and Post, the other from a drive-by mainstream operation. Introspective stories on what's wrong with the Democrats, written by Democrats. I have not seen stories like, they don't do this. They never analyze what's wrong with them. They always find other people to blame, the Russians, Trump, or what have you. And there's a battle brewing up between establishment Democrats and non-establishment out in flyover country. It's fascinating tomorrow.